And then and diving in a little bit more on learning agents and your solutions. So CanCred Factory is part of that. And as I said in the intro, by Canadians for Canadians. I noticed the very traditional Canadian architecture in the background. No, I think we'll come back to that a little bit later because that might
Yeah,
not be
yeah,
be from Canada. But yeah, tell us about CanCred Factory and where
sure.
what the history is and how that fits and the value of that for your clients.
Yeah, it's kind of related to what I was talking about with bringing badges to the Epic conference. So badges started being presented at the Epic conference, and our current partners, Open Badge Factory Solutions, was known by another name at the time. They were coming to these conferences because they actually had they were using the Mahara platform. They had forked the Mahara platform. They had an e-portfolio platform in Finland that was serving sort of the educational system in Finland. It was called Kuvits, and but then they heard about these open badges, and then they
Mm-hmm.
started developing a solution around it. And I started talking to Eric Roussel, who was with Open Badge Factory Solutions, and we set up this partnership in Canada in 2016. And we're actually the only one in the world who have this. Basically, that same technology on Canadian servers for the Canadian context. And at one point, it wasn't all that uh, people didn't necessarily seem all that impressed by it, but actually recently it's become a little more important to have a Canadian technology solution.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and there's with such great concern around data sovereignty that
Right.
is just increasingly important. So fantastic, um, brilliant. And then, yeah, well, you mentioned skills to where I've mentioned it as well. So earlier this year, both Edalex and Skills Aware we've been thrilled to partner with learning agents, um, and it really brings such great opportunities and excitement from our side. But one of the key areas that we're seeing a lot of interest and traction in is RPL or PLAR, goes by different acronyms all around the world. Lots of letters. What is that? What does it mean? Why is it important? And then, yeah, what opportunities do you see for platforms like SkillsAware to play in that space?
Sure. I mean, this goes back to what I was talking about, portfolio conferences and things
Hmm.
like that. For me, the doorway was recognition. And what's often called recognition or prior learning, or in the States, they call it these days credit for prior learning, which is a term I'm not crazy about because it's about more than credit.
Right.
And it, in fact, it's about more than prior learning. It's a lens on learning. So it's a lens that says you can develop your skills not just by taking a course. You can develop them experientially, and often that's a better way of doing it. So, for example, with the durable skills that we've been talking about. So you have all sorts of people looking at this. They have something called a VPL. There's another TLA, three-letter
Another
acronym.
TLA? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, validation of prior learning. Um, and often it's an inclusive term that can include credit transfer, um, and to some extent maybe even external credit, i.e., coming from the industry sector. So a manager of what is it, a McDonald's management program could be selected for credit and sort of brought into the system. But most importantly, I think, or what most people think about it is that it's a PLAR, prior learning assessment and recognition, or what they sometimes call APEL, assessment of prior experiential learning in Europe, and basically is looking at what you got and trying to figure out what skills are embedded in that and how those could be applied, typically to the needs of a program or the needs of admission to an institution. And there's some limitations around that. What if you've got some great learning, but there's no programs to do with it in the institution? You're kind of out of luck. So where we come at it with is those principles can be applied to anything. It doesn't have to map to a program. So that's part of that openness, right? Is if you have skills, how can we help you cluster those skills in interesting ways that might help you take the next step in your life, whether it's in the community, in the workplace, or in post-secondary education. And people like, there's some real thought leaders out there around this. Nan Travers is one that comes to mind. She's sort of a doyen of recognition of learning, and she's in, and that's actually what she calls it now. It's just recognition of learning. She took the prior out, and she talks about what
Interesting.
recognizing not just what we cherish, but recognizing what the person brings. So in
Hmm.
other words, if we just cherish this program, if you've got that breadth, you should be bringing that to us and enriching us in both directions.
Perfect. No,
So
that's great. And really, any tool that helps enable this process, and get people thinking about the skills, and elicit information and gather the evidence, and compile that, and support that, is going to help, the 2/3 of us who are struggling with the vocabulary, with the language, and ultimately with the proof. Yeah.
exactly. And going back to portfolio times, I often said, wouldn't it be great if you had a study buddy, a recognition buddy that could help you and say, well, no, you did something last week. Don't you remember doing that? You know, somebody who can see ourselves as others see us, right? Um, that's you know, that Robbie Burns thing. So basically, you know, you have PLAR advisors who help people. But the trouble is, PLAR advisors don't typically have the breadth of knowledge of the world of work to effectively help a person in every sector, every kind of person who's going to come in the door. Maybe they can help people because they came from the health sector, so they could help somebody who wants to get into long-term care, but they don't know anything about construction. So if somebody has done sort of carpentry work on work sites, or done general labor on work sites, they can't work with them and figure out where that's going. So the power for me of the skills aware, I'm getting quite excited about it, because I've been working with my recently acquired login and playing with it and starting to upload evidence and get
Hmm.
at it. There is it helps me because it prompts me and starts telling me, okay, this skill needs a little more evidence here. Here's some suggestions for some things you can put in there. But you can also keep the human in the loop, so that PLAR advisor can be
Hmm.
still at that person's side, still encouraging them and activating them and helping them with that confidence. Meanwhile, you have this sort of breadth of the world of work that's been sort of, that the whole system has been trained on, with all those skills that have been developed over the years in partnership with industry over what is it, 4 decades. So it's very exciting to be working with.
Perfect. No, that's great. And you mentioned transferable skills and durable skills, and one of the early projects that we're working on, that's really exciting for us, is working with a group of veterans who are transitioning from active duty into civilian life. And again, just as most people have challenges describing their skills earned and developed in a military context, they don't necessarily know how that corresponds. And so what industry, you talk about going from construction to another industry. So construction might be the destination, for some of these veterans, or cookery, or aged care, a whole range of different areas where they have these amazing skills and abilities, and yet they just don't know how to recognize it. So yeah, we're likewise really excited about that potential.